Hello and welcome to The Lawless Way, a series of talks based on the book called The Lawless Way by that amazing author, Philip J. Bradbury, who is me, Mr. Modesty. Today, we'd like to talk about making decisions and making right decisions. And there are a lot of people, probably started by Joseph Campbell, who coined the phrase, find your bliss. And there's a lot of people, including him, Abraham Hicks, and probably hundreds of others who tell us that the way to decide what to do is to find what gives us the most passion, what gives us the biggest buzz, what gives us bliss. And that absolutely works. It works for millions of people, and it will continue to work for millions of people. However, sometimes when we're in indecision, when we don't know what to do, and especially when there's the stress of needing to do it right, so we think making the right decision, when it's a difficult decision and we find it hard to find any kind of big positive thing, i.e. passion, bliss, and all of that sort of stuff. Sometimes it's just a real struggle to make a decision. And sometimes decisions, even not ones that are not life threatening, they are life challenging in the sense that whatever the decision we make will make a huge difference to our life. And so that pressure, that stress around that makes it hard to access those great big positive feelings of bliss and passion. And so, how do we make a decision when we can't get to that place of knowing what our bliss is? Well, the Course of Miracles would tell us to find peace, to make a decision based not on any great excitement, any great um, big passion type feeling, but on the feeling of peace. So when we have something, let's say we have two choices. So the Course of Miracle would say to be still, to be silent, and be in each of those choices. So if we're deciding, do we buy this house or that house? Okay, so first of all, we imagine buying house A and walking into it and living in it. And then we do that with B, buying it, walking into it, living in it. Which of those choices gives us that undeniable, irrepressible feeling of peace? It's not excitement. It's not hugely jolly and leaping about stuff. There's just the quiet sense of peace. And that is something we can access in any moment. There is, if we still ourselves, and even if it's a very difficult situation, maybe it's about divorce or do I take this cancer treatment or whatever it is, something very important to say, where do I go from here? And I really, really, really need to make the right decision. And so A Course of Miracles would suggest that we still ourselves. Just be still a moment. Don't use logic. We can come to logic at some other time. In this moment, we still ourselves and we go to the one that gives us peace. And that sounds very simple. However, we have been programmed to use logic. We have been programmed to make decisions from our conscious mind. The problem is our conscious mind does not know consequences. The conscious mind does not know what is going to happen from every decision we make. And I'm sure we've all been invited to parties that we're really excited about, or been to a movie, or been to something that we're really excited about, and we guess, oh yes, this is going to be fun. And we get there, and it's the most boring time out. Or alternatively, We're invited, say, to a party, and we just don't feel like it. We're not in the mood. We know these parties are always boring, or this kind of movie, I don't like that actor, it's always dreadful. We'll walk out halfway through. But we drag ourselves along and we have the most amazing experience. It's brilliant, unexpected. And we have those experiences. We get what we don't expect. And why? Because we're using our conscious mind. See, if my mother, when I was a child, cooked broccoli or Brussels sprouts and I hated it back then, I'm always going to hate Brussels sprouts. So if someone now, 40 years later, offers me Brussels sprouts, I don't make the decision on these Brussels sprouts right now. I make the decision, or sorry, my conscious mind makes a decision on the past. Those Brussels sprouts 40 years ago were dreadful, and so these ones will be. And the last time I was dragged along to one of my children's concerts, it was boring, and I hate children's concerts because of the conscious mind remembers the last one. And so I go along to one of my kids' concerts, expecting to be bored stiff. And I'm pleasantly surprised. It's an amazing experience, and I meet neat people there, and the performances are great. And so that's where our conscious mind makes decisions from the past. When I had a holiday in Sydney, it poured as rain and it was cold, so I'm never going to Sydney. Sydney's awful. That's what happened in the past. But I might go back to Sydney, drag myself along for whatever reason and find, my gosh, it's a beautiful place. Wonderful weather, friendly people, whatever. Our conscious mind always makes decisions on what happened in that experience last time. Whether it's food, the last time I went to a Turkish restaurant, they were so friendly and interesting and it was amazing food. So I now love Turkish restaurants. And so I go to another Turkish restaurant and I'm surprised because the food's dreadful. But I made the decision to go there based on the past. And my conscious mind only ever works from the past. So I've had bad experiences in relationships. And every time I've been in a relationship with a woman, they have ripped me off. So therefore, all women will rip me off. I don't trust women or men, whoever you have relationships with. We base everything on the past. And the past is never going to happen again. So when we're making decisions, any decision, whether it's buying shoes or buying a new house or moving countries or getting a new job or anything, buying a takeaway, whatever the decision is, if we wish to make it with a bigger knowing of consequences, we need to put our conscious mind aside. We step aside and allow our unconscious, which does know consequences. It knows what's going to happen. We don't know this from our conscious mind, but if we use the unconscious, it will give us a decision that's more effective. Now, Jerry Jampolsky, who you may have heard of him, he's written many books, one of them called Love is Letting Go of Fear. He started the attitudinal healing movement, shall we say, an amazing man, full of love and vitality, bouncing about the planet. Anyway, so we met him in London several years ago, and he and his wife, Diane Crucioni, they explained how at one stage they were offered two speaking engagements. One was the Americans, and so one of those speaking engagements was I think it was in Los Angeles. It was across the country, and they'd been there many times. They liked Los Angeles, but they'd been there many times. The other choice was to go to do, and it was only short. I think it was only about a 3-day or 5-day speaking engagement in, I think it was Sydney, or certainly Australia. So here they had two choices. One was Los Angeles, that they'd been before. The other was Australia. And I think Jerry had been to Australia, but never to New Zealand, and Diane had never been to either of those countries. And especially Diane, I think, really, really, really wanted to go to New Zealand and Australia. So here they were. making a choice. How do we decide? And their conscious mind said, yes, I really want to go and do the Australian speaking engagement for several days. That's because we've always wanted to go there. But as they always do, they decided because they come from a Course in Miracles base background, they call it the Holy Spirit. Let's let the Holy Spirit decide. Now, other people use different words: intuition, gut feeling, higher, um, whatever we use, but they call it the Holy Spirit. It's that bigger knowing that knows a bigger decision and a bigger consequence without the past being in the way. So, what they always do, they sit down in a moment of stillness and pray. And they pray to what they call the Holy Spirit. So they tune into that which is bigger than them, bigger than their conscious mind. And within a few minutes, they both opened their eyes and said, we're going to Los Angeles, aren't we? And that was the answer that came through from their, if you like, their unconscious mind, which they termed the Holy Spirit. And a little bit deflated, they thought, yes, we need to follow this guidance. This is what we're being asked to do. So they went to Los Angeles and they did the speaking engagement. And that was that. No, it wasn't. There they met a man who was so impressed with them. He said, look, I'm organizing a tour of Australia, speakers going around Australia, and I'd love you to come with me. And so they did. And so instead of going to Sydney for 3 or 5 days, they ended up being paid to go around Australia and to New Zealand. And I don't know how long it was, but I think it was about 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. So in taking the most illogical trip to Los Angeles, they ended up having a much bigger trip in New Zealand and Australia. And so when we stop trying to make our minds up through the conscious mind that only remembers the past, the other way is to, Joseph Campbell would say, follow your bliss. And that in itself often sounds, the thing I really want to do just sounds so illogical and not going to work, and it's never been done before. So you can use the follow your bliss, which is kind of the same thing. But when you aren't able to access that kind of big gush of emotion, if you like, try peace. Try balancing up the feeling of peace. Because you see, let's say if we're thinking about a partner, we've met somebody and what do? We're in love and all of that sort of stuff. However, we start analyzing them, their body, their interests, the way they talk, and how they react with us, and the things that they like, and we pick on little details. And I like this about them, but that annoys me, and I don't like this. And how do I choose? What's the most important thing? And we do the same with houses. I don't mean to compare partners and houses. However, we do that, and we do that with cars. I like this about this car, and I like that, but I can't decide which is the most important thing, and what do I put up with to have the big thing. And that's all from the past. And the past is gone. And the past, it will repeat itself if that's how we make our decisions. They say the past repeats. Well, it will. If we keep making our decisions with our conscious mind, we will still get the same thing. And if we have the perception that all women are going to rip me off because they have in the past, and I keep that in my mind, and then I choose another partner, woman, from my conscious mind, I will end up with someone who rips me off, which therefore proves that I'm right. And so it concretes, it cements that belief and makes it real for us. However, if we wish to undo the past and step into a new set of possibilities, opportunities, and have a different future, we need to step away from our conscious mind, the one that we do the thinking with and the analyzing with and the pulling to pieces with, step away from the conscious mind and go to that illogical one, if you like, and simply ask, where does peace reside? Do I choose this house, or that house? This car, that car, this job or that job? Do I go to the beach today or do we go to the cinema? Any choice, and we can, as we practice it, it becomes easier, and it can take a second. Yes, no, okay, there's peace in that, not peace in that one. There is this, after a while, it becomes almost automatic. Sometimes a bigger decision might take a little more time. We just have to step away from because there are things that I loved in my old house, and I want those same things. And when I had a wonderful experience in a particular house, I will identify that wonderful experience with the shape of the house, that it had a red iron roof and it had, I don't know, mullion windows, and it had this type of lawn garden out the back, and it had this kind of kitchen. So that is the form that I'm going to be looking for, with the illogical thought that if I have the same bits, same details in my next house, I will have the same experience. No. When we are looking at a house, because I have a friend of mine who, when she's looking at new houses, she has certain needs, so many bedrooms and bathrooms and whatever, 2-story or not 2-story, and garage. She needs certain things in her house, but she also tells herself or works out what she wants emotionally from this house. So the feeling that she walks in when she's first looking at it, and then when she goes back a second time and a third time, does it have that feeling of security, that feeling of homeliness, that feeling of wholeness, that feeling of invitingness? Does the house smile while I walk into it, if you like? Stepping beyond the conscious, physical attributes of the house. And if you like, that's a little bit stepping away from the conscious mind, going to emotion. What do I want to feel when I get in my car, when I'm with this person? So going back to my original thesis, shall we say, thought, idea, when we're having an indecisive moment, we're indecisive because we're trying to use our conscious mind, the one that sits on top, the one that, as A Course in Miracles talks about, two voices. There's the voice for ego, and it always speaks first and it always speaks loudest. And that is, if you like, the voice of the conscious mind, the one that says, yes, I want this kind of house and I want that in it, and I da 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 da. Just, it's going to do that. We can't stop the voice for ego prattling on. However, when we're making a decision, it's very important, if we want to have a new future, different from the past, to allow that first noisy voice just to let it go, and then allow the second quiet voice in. The Course in Miracles calls it the voice for God. And we can call it whatever we like. It might be the subconscious, it might be our higher self, or whatever we call it. When we stop and listen to that quiet voice, there is we're looking at our different alternatives, there will be a sense of peace around one of them. And it's not necessarily a voice in a noise way, or we don't get visions or anything in our five senses. It's just a sense, a feeling, just a knowing that there's peace around this, and that is the right decision. And a little bit like Jerry and Diane with their, do we go to LA or Australia? Sometimes it's the most logical thing, and it's the thing that our ego really does not want. And yet, most of the time, if not all of the time, when we listen to that quiet voice that speaks second, we end up with a bigger consequence, a better consequence that our little conscious mind has no concept of. We can't tell what's going to happen, who we're going to meet, the things that we will learn and enjoy, and the emotions that we will have even when we go downtown, as we do. Maybe we go downtown every day. If we decide to do it from a sense of peace, that same old experience, I will guarantee you, will be different from the other ones that you've always had. If we do something regularly, if we stop our mind just for a moment and just choose to go with peace and openness, it will be a different experience. Something new will open up, and we'll be aware of, I don't know, people, things, events, sensations that we were not aware of before. And so while we're making these momentous decisions about our lives, and the tiny decisions, what do I have for breakfast, whatever, try choosing peace and allow that to guide, and trust it, because we do have to trust it, because its answer is often illogical. It's not what I really wanted, but when I did it, it was amazing. So choose peace. That is the mission for today. Stop. Maybe close your eyes in a moment. Listen. If you're with somebody else making that decision, you can hold hands, and if you want, you pray together or just be together and see what comes up, which decision comes from the peace. So thank you for listening, and bless you all, and have a wonderful day.